back to my channel. My name is Tabitha Gabrielle, and today I'm going to be ranting to you about a book that I cannot decide my feelings on, and that book is The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. Before we say anything else, I would like to preface this video by saying that there will be spoilers contained throughout this video. I hope that all of you appreciate the time and effort that I put into this video. Not only did I make this little sign, but I also took the liberty of going onto Pinterest and gathering character inspiration images that reminded me of each character. Me and my sister drew these little doodles for different things throughout the story. So I hope that you enjoy that. For the images that I got off of Pinterest, I do not own these images. If you happen to know the original creator or the people that are pictured in these images, just put that down below and I will happily credit them. If you'd like real-time thoughts and feelings about this book, you can hop on over and watch this video where I vlog my real-time experience. But without further ado, this is The Courting of Bristol Keats, in depth, with the plot being as explained as it can be, being such a chaotic fever dream of a book that it is. You're in for a ride today, okay? The book opens with an introduction to our main character, Miss Bristol Keats herself. Bristol works as a pizza delivery person for their local pizza shop. Something to know about Bristol is she is extremely motivated by family. Throughout her childhood, her parents would up and leave multiple times, so she never really was able to form roots or grow community where she was. Because of this, she is very close to her immediate family unit, made up of her older sister, Cat Keats, her younger sister, Harper Keats, her mom, Leanna Keats, and her dad, Logan Keats. Her parents very much have the vibe of being artistic, hippie, nomadic, kind of paranoid types of people. At the beginning of the story, we learn that the three sisters are holding things together as best they can while they grieve the loss of both of their parents. Their mother, Leanna, went missing and then was found dead, causing their father, Logan, to spiral before ultimately getting hit by a car. Yeah. Working and surviving the best that they can, the three sisters are keeping things together for each other and for themselves. Bristol keeps getting these letters in the mail from someone claiming to be a long-lost aunt. The letter expresses that the aunt would like to give her a very expensive piece of art. Unaware of any relative that she may have, Bristol repeatedly disregards these letters until they come so repeatedly and so frequently that she cannot ignore them any longer. Now, I almost consider Bristol's parents, Leanna and Logan, to be like main characters in this story, because we as readers are actively learning about their mysterious, vague, shadowy pasts alongside Bristol after their deaths, supposedly. We'll get to that in a second. Turns out, Bristol's parents, they have a lot of skeletons in the closet. And I mean that literally because, like, they killed people. Their dramatic love story is literally littered with bodies, okay? However, they didn't kill people in our world. Oh, no. They killed people in Elfhame. Let's go to Elfhame real quick. So Bristol's father, known in the real world, our world, as Logan, his real name is Cyrus. Cyrus was actually born in our world, the real world, but as a toddler ended up wandering through a portal and falling into the fairy world, proving that maybe those little toddler leash backpack situations are actually pretty good inventions. The fairies of Elfhame, upon discovering this little human toddler, tried to reunite him with his parents, but because time flows differently in our world versus Elfhame, the fairy world, his parents were long dead by the time that they actually found them. So, yeah. Because of this, Cyrus ends up being raised by the High Witch of the fairy world. Because of his adopted mother being the High Witch and therefore living in or adjacent to the castle, Cyrus grows up alongside the princes and princess of Elfhame. There's Cale, eldest brother and heir to the throne of Elfhame, Tigan, our other main character, and Melusine, their sister. Cyrus and Prince Tigan grow to be really good friends throughout their young adult life. One day, they are sent as knights on a mission to destroy this character named the Darkland Monster. This is where their relationship gets a little bit dicey. So, imagine being sent on this mission with your best friend. A mission to assassinate a monster that has literally been terrorizing your people for years. And then, imagine that your best friend, Curious, gets all like,
hey, so there's this girl and she's really sweet, even though she kills people and has fangs and scales and stuff. But don't worry, I can fix her because love fixes everything.
And then Taigen, like any normal person would be, is like,
hey man, don't worry, you're my best friend, I've got your back. She's got you under some kind of spell. I will break that spell by killing her for you.
But then, Curious proceeds to stab Prince Taigen with a demon blade, meaning that he will forever be haunted by these demons and will never know another moment's peace for the rest of his life. As you can understand, Taigen is a little bit angry about this, just a little bit salty, because, he was just trying to do his mission, he was just trying to save his friend, and
he gets stabbed with a demon blade.
So now Curious and his little monster girlfriend, the Darkland Monster, are wanted criminals in Elfheim. So Curious is over here like,
hey, I know a place.
And thus they come to the real world. So they move to the real world, get married, change their names, and have 3 children together. But the Kingdom of Elfheim is not going to let them go so easily, and they end up following Leanna and Logan throughout all the real world, everywhere that they go. Hence why they ended up moving around so much, and hence why Bristol never had a normal childhood. Remember how I told you that time moves differently in the 2 worlds? Yeah, so in Elfheim, at this point in the story, it's been 6 months since the whole Demon Blade incident with Taigen. But in our world, it's been 25 years. I forgot to put up our drawing of the Demon Blade situation, so I'm just gonna stick that there. So back to our girl, Bristol. It's been 25 years since all that, and now she's getting all these random letters from this so-called family member that she has never met before in her life. And also, the resident homeless lady, Willow, within the town of Bow's Keep, informs Bristol that her father is not actually dead. Her father was actually kidnapped by these creatures called Trows. Willow saw it with her own eyes, she said. She said she saw it with her own eyes, okay? Why wouldn't you trust the resident homeless lady named Willow who's slightly delusional? One day, when Bristol is feeling particularly fragile financially, she decides to actually follow the address on one of these little letters that she's been receiving and see what it's all about, So she decides to visit her aunt and immediately feels weird vibes in the air whenever she arrives at the address listed on the letter. She is offered pieces of art by these random people and is very highly encouraged to accept one of these pieces of art. Now, just basic knowledge on fairies. They're all about twisting people into these deals and bargains by any means necessary. So by choosing a piece of art, Bristol is unwittingly agreeing to some kind of little bargain that they want her to take part in. Before leaving this little address situation in her town, she ends up seeing the unglamoured version of the people that offered her these pieces of art, and she is understandably horrified. Seeing the non-glamoured version of the fairy people, meaning that she's seeing them in their true form, not as the form that they've disguised themselves as to look like normal people. So she is horrified, she quickly rides her bike home, and receives a quick lesson from her little sister Harper on fairy etiquette. Harper very quickly lets her know that she done messed up by taking one of these pieces of art, even though they encouraged her to and made it seem like it's safe. She agreed to their bargain, even though she didn't know she was agreeing to their bargain. That's not how it works in the fairyland. So Harper's like,
sis, you done messed up.
So the fairies, the reason why they want her to come so bad is because they need her to close some kind of portal door. And it's a door that only she can find for some reason or another. I don't really remember the details on that. And she has promised more art, more expensive art that she can help her sisters with in exchange for doing this little task for the fairy people. So Bristol ends up agreeing to go to Elfheim under one condition, and that condition is she wants help finding the Trows, that abducted her father. Prince Tigan, being one of the people who was convincing her to get the art in the first place, agrees to this set of terms, knowing full well who her father is, and wanting to find him for, revenge purposes because of the whole Demon Blade situation. Thanks to the High Witch, Tigan is sleeping at night without having, any bad dreams with the demon situation, but, understandably is still pretty salty about the whole, your best friend stabbing you over some monster girl situation. Because, in Tigan's mind, it's only been 6 months. When she arrives in Elfhame, Bristol discovers that there are other situations that the fairy people are dealing with, including war with a neighboring kingdom called Famoria, led by a dude named King Cormac. Our dude King Cormac over here has an army of undead soldiers, meaning they can die in battle and then come back a few hours later. Yeah, super fun stuff. Also, he captured Tigan's older brother Kale and is now holding him for ransom. Basically, the fairies of Elfhame need to close this portal door so that King Cormac can't come through the portal with his army of undead soldiers and wipe them all off the face of the earth. For some reason, I literally cannot remember. I don't know why they can't do that themselves. I don't know why they need Bristol to come in and do it for them. But for some reason, they can't handle this situation themselves. So they're like, we need this girl to come and close the portal for us. So they have a team of new recruits, including Bristol here, who have to go through training and observation for this particular task. Yeah, I don't remember why they can't do it themselves. They have to have Bristol and some other randos from the real world come in and do some training, and they have to figure it out. There is one problem though, and that problem is that Bristol does not have any noticeable magical powers to help her find this portal door that they so desperately need to close. Her teachers think that she's super lame because she can't even do a simple spell like levitating an object. Yeah, what a loser. Her peers are pretty nice, though, and they can shift into animals like hawks, cats, stuff like that. They're the cool kids in school, Bristol's not a cool kid. She doesn't have a little animal alias to change into. Our girl Bristol, while going through all of her training and stuff, ends up discovering a palm-sized portal to the real world in Tigan's study. So she's snooping around in Tigan's study and she finds this portal that leads to her laundry room back in the real world. She's conveniently able to keep in touch with her sisters because of this. Also, did I mention that Bristol has a pet ferret? I didn't? Well, yeah, she does. She has a pet ferret named Angus. Except her ferret's not a ferret. He's a criminal from the fairy world that's been spying on her for years. Yeah. Trust no one. That is what this book taught me. Trust no one, not even your pet ferret named Angus, because you never know who could be hiding on the other side of that cute little ferret face. So as part of Bristol's training in the fairy world to find this portal door, there's a maze situation, and y'all know I love a good maze situation. I've said that before. But this is a magical maze that shifts and changes, and you're supposed to be able to use your powers to navigate through it and stuff like that. It's testing your magical abilities. One problem with that, though, our girl Bristol still doesn't have any magical powers because she's a loser. So, yeah, the maze beats her up really bad. So we as readers have almost lost faith in our girl Bristol over here when all of a sudden, right before one of the maze drills, the undead strike. So all the new recruits are ordered to hide, but then Bristol discovers that one of her peers, the one who can turn into a hawk, is actually not there. Turns out that character had snuck into the maze before the whole undead situation was announced, and now she's stuck out in the maze while the undead are attacking. And so Bristol, being the heroic main character that she is, strikes out into the maze after her. So unfortunately for Bristol and all of our other Elfhame friends, these creepy undead characters, they also ride these weird bat-like dragon creatures as horses. It's their faithful steed right there is the bat-like dragon creatures. So blood and gore are raining down from the sky as Bristol is searching the maze for her friend Rose. When she finds Rose has broken her arm, which leaves her unable to shift into her hawk form, so she's stuck there. And that's just the perfect time for the biggest, scariest undead soldier to run into them both in the maze. So he just pops up out of nowhere and adds some much needed terror to the plot. I must say, this was like one of my favorite scenes out of the whole book, was when they were getting stalked by this character through the maze. I feel like this situation really moved the plot along. Long story short, Tygan ends up saving Bristol, and then when the High Witch is assessing Bristol for any kind of damages or injuries or anything, a horrifying discovery is made. Apparently, Elfhame has ticks that can grow to the size of large baseballs. And that is precisely what is discovered on Bristol's back. A magic-sucking tick. Like, y'all didn't see this growth on her back before now? Somebody needs to be fired. Like, Bristol and Tygan have been having middle-of-the-night rendezvous, like to dance and stuff, whatever. And not once did Tygan notice this, like, baseball-sized lump on her back. All I got to say is, bruh. Oh, and as a quick note on that, the romance between Bristol and Tygan is shallow at best, and at worst is a father's best friend trope. But it's more like father's best friend trope, except I don't know he's actually formally best friends with my father because we don't communicate about important things trope. What the romance is at best. Like, we should have switched out some of those spicy scenes into just, like, some banter, get-to-know-you scenes. That would have made it better. But here we are. Disappointing. Anyway, back to the plot. Bristol has this massive magic-sucking tick on her back. Tygan is horrified. The High Witch is horrified. Bristol is understandably having a conniption fit over this situation. The High Witch attempts a removal of the tick, but only angers it
by accidentally ripping off one of its legs.
These little ticks have legs that are the size of ogre's thumbs. Ogre's thumbs! You guys! What? So, ripping off the leg ends up resulting in a little bit of Bristol's magic being released back into her bloodstream. Long story short, Bristol ends up finding out that her parents, Leanna and Logan over here, planted this tick on her as a baby. Man, I'm telling you, somebody get me a Parenting for Dummies book, because these fools need it. The tick became active when Bristol entered Elfhame, and hence why she has had no magical abilities since being in Elfhame, because the tick is over here literally getting drunk on her magic. Like, that is the exact terminology that's used. The tick
drunk on her magic.
Bristol is horrified to know that her parents did this to her, but is also now having an identity crisis because she is now developing these weird golden scales on her back and these weird little blue spikes where her little cuticle nail beds should be. Perks of your mom being the Darkland monster, I suppose. Anyway, this tick is settled in and doesn't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. During the attempted removal operation, its leg was just chopped off and it decided to just dig in deeper into Bristol's, spine area. Because removing it would be a potential threat to Bristol's life, they all collectively decide that it's best to just leave it as is. Imagine walking around with a sentient, baseball-sized creature wriggling around in your back. Knock me out really good, rip out my back, do whatever you've got to do, but get the thing off me. Because, that's horrifying. Burn it. Drown it in the deepest part of the ocean. That's horrifying. Literally, you guys. One of the spicy scenes occurs with this tick just chilling on her back like it belongs there. Will somebody please explain to me the logistics of that? I don't even want to think about it. How disgusting. What on earth? No. Baby, no. That is so disgusting. And honestly, I feel bad for the tick having to go through that. I'm done thinking about it. I don't want to think about it anymore. I'm sorry that I planted that image on y'all's minds. So with this tick just chilling on her back, they're still going through the training and stuff, they decide to have a ball. I don't remember what the ball's for. It's some kind of event. I don't remember. Who shows up at this ball except for King Cormac himself just low-key chillin', acted like he doesn't have the heir to the throne of Elfhame just chillin' in his dungeon somewhere. Just casually acting like him and Teigen are besties. Have been besties for years. Like, no, sir. No, sir, you're actually an enemy here. We didn't invite you.
You can't sit with us.
Also, Bristol is horrified when she sees him because, yeah, she knows him from the real world. She knows him from the real world. And who is he? Who is he? I'll tell you who he is. He is none other than her trashy ex-boyfriend, Mick, whom she has a spicy moment with that is briefly mentioned in the back of the pizza shop that she works in back in the real world. Now, how awkward is that? This is why, ladies, this is why you don't get yourself into awkward situations like this. This is why you don't sleep with your trashy ex-boyfriend in the back of your pizza shop that you work in, okay? Lesson learned. Like, how embarrassing, LOL. Bristol, sweetie, we need to talk about your life choices. Yeah, so in the real world, Bristol's over here like, gee, wonder what happened to my trashy ex-boyfriend Mick. He just up and disappeared one day. I mean, fair enough, I'm just gonna leave him down there. Point illustrated. Turns out, he had disappeared from the real world because he had returned to Elfhame to wreak further havoc and cause further destruction. So, upon meeting each other all at this ball, Teigen's over here like, wait, you know this guy? Wait, Bristol, my current girlfriend, low-key, but we're not labeled. You know King Cormac? And she's like, haha, yeah, lol, he's my ex. And Teigen's all like, wait a second, come again? And she's like, yeah, lol, oops. And then Cormac does this weird shadow jump thing with Bristol where he disappears both of them from the ball and whisks them away to somewhere where they can talk in private. During this encounter, Bristol ends up ripping out some of his hair for a magical spell that she's planning later on. After a precarious situation where she very intelligently and smartly tricks Cormac into believing that Teigen knows where Kale is located and is planning to take him back actively, Cormac freaks out and returns her to the ball before whisking himself back to his home and checking on Kale because he's like terrified that now Teigen's going to take Kale back and Kale is his little prisoner. So they do the spell thanks to Bristol collecting some of Cormac's hair, and they're able to kind of follow Cormac and see what he's seeing, and Teigen proceeds to dispatch troops that will follow Cormac back to wherever he's hiding Kale, because presumably that's where he's going to check and make sure that Kale is still there and is, heavily guarded and protected and everything. So Teigen dispatches troops to deal with this situation. And somewhere around this point in the plot, Bristol also uses her newfound magical powers released from the tick to close that little magical portal door that they needed her to close in the first place. Throughout all of this nonsense, we end up getting a couple of chapters from Bristol's father's point of view. It was insightful, but not my favorite, because I really don't like him as a character. So, Bristol's father knows that Bristol is in Elfhame because word gets around. He is angry that she is with Teigen, his ex-best friend. And he's also annoyed that Teigen obviously didn't share any of their history with Bristol. So, using a contact that he has within the Elfhame castle, he ends up sneaking a note to Bristol, and he's like, hey, it's your dad. Meet me out in this abandoned barn out in the woods in the middle of nowhere. Bristol gets this note and gets all excited, like, oh, my dad is alive, actually. I'm going to have to let my sisters know. They're going to be so excited. So she steals Teigen's horse and goes off to meet him in this a random abandoned barn in the middle of nowhere. Panic ensues when she shows up missing at the castle, and then Teigen uses a locating spell with hair from her hairbrush to find out where she's at and where she's going. But apparently using this stupid locator spell or whatever prompts the demons, he was stabbed with the demon blade or whatever, it prompts the demons to come back and haunt him some more. So he's sacrificing his escape from the demons to find Bristol and go and follow her. Yeah, I don't know. So oops on the demon situation. Oopsies, we re-stirred that pot. So anyway, he takes his closest friends and they all strike out and follow Bristol to this random barn in the middle of the woods. So Bristol meets her father and he attempts to explain away every single thing that she has learned about him throughout her time living in Elfhame. She is angry that he lied to her and her sisters about being dead, and is angry that he just allowed them to just believe that and struggle financially and go through that grieving process. Her father explains that the decisions that he made were made out of love for his wife, Bristol's mom, the Darkland monster, Leanna Keats. It's like, yeah, sorry I gave you trauma. It's because I love your mom so much. Because I'm such a good person.
I may not love you, but I love your mom.
No, thank you. So this is also where Bristol learns that Tigan is her father's former best friend. Logan/Curious tells Bristol that, like,
oh, Tigan's, he's such a bad guy because he was going to kill your mom. You wouldn't want that, would you?
He's all like,
oh, you love your mom, don't you? Yeah, he was going to kill her. If it hadn't been for me, he would have killed her. Yeah, I know she's a monster and everything. Just ignore that fact. Ignore the fact that she killed some people, okay? It's fine. He would have killed her.
Baby, there are consequences for your actions. So now, Bristol is angry, frustrated, and confused on multiple levels, and she leaves the barn angry, ready to exact revenge. Having followed her, Tigan and his little posse, they all enter the barn, and after the most cringy dialogue confrontation scene you have ever read written on a page. Like, I'm not even gonna go there. No, just the confrontation of Prince Tigan and Logan/Curious. Oh my gosh. I wanted to, like, I was like, what is happening right now? So after that cringy dialogue, Curious escapes mysteriously. Like, in a puff of smoke, he just mysteriously vanishes. Because of course he does. They all return to the castle, and Bristol has already returned to the castle, and she is furious. She's out for blood. She wants answers. And at this point, I felt that. I was like, same girl, me too, you get 'em. So during her conversation where she's confronting Tigan about all of this, and she's like, hey, you knew about this whole time. You knew who my father was, and you knew that was for your former best friend. You never said anything, and we've been sleeping together, and there's like all this. Understandable. I still think that Bristol needs to reassess her life choices on who she sleeps with, but, I digress. Bristol gets really furious during this discussion, and she ends up throwing a fireball at Prince Tigan, because yeah, she can do that now. The High Witch did not take kindly to this, because she serves Prince Tigan. She does not take kindly to this and pins Bristol against the wall with her magical abilities. Tigan gets upset at the High Witch and is like,
hey, let her go, I love her.
Tigan tries to explain his side, but Bristol doesn't want to hear any of it because he didn't tell her what he knew, and so she had to hear it from her dad, and so now it's this awkward, like, weird situation that she's in, and so Tigan's trying to explain his side, and Bristol's like,
nah, shut up, I don't want to hear it.
She's angry, which is understandable, but is also slightly unreasonable because she still sees her parents as, like, saints that can do no wrong, and, she thinks that they low-key deserve no punishment, even after what she's discovered about them, even after what he confessed to. She's like, nah, those are my parents. Baby, as I've said multiple times already, there are consequences for your actions. Bristol's opinion shifts when she sees the effects of the demon blade on Tigan, the demon blade that her father cut Tigan with. She ends up randomly stumbling into his room while the High Witch is offering her little treatments for the ailment, or whatever you want to call it. He had it under control originally, but like I said earlier, it was like reopened. The weird, I don't know, the ability of them to affect him was reopened whenever he used the tracking spell to find out where Bristol was going when she left to find her father. So anyway, Bristol feels bad for Tigan over the situation and ends up singing to him, which cures him. She cures him by singing to him. This scene is then followed by a few lines of dialogue that results in a spicy scene. This book ends on a spicy scene, and none of my questions were answered. Like, I know that there is supposed to be a second book, but the amount of dissatisfaction that I received from reading this first book, I'm like, the only reason I would read it is to get the answers to the questions that I thought I would be getting answers for during this book. But no, I'm like, the amount of disappointment that I feel is immeasurable. I have no words. I still have so many questions. Number one being like, what is Bristol? What is she? Like, she's obviously not fully human. My second question is, who is Willow? She's the one who sent Bristol out on this whole mission in the first place. So I'm like, she's got to be more important than just a random resident homeless lady. What happened to Angus the ferret? That's a high question on my list. Like, what happened to Angus the ferret? Did the snake from the little mirror snake situation, did the snake eat him? Like, I need to know this. I didn't even mention that during this little chat thing here, but Titan has a mirror with a snake that's like a guard dog, basically. It doesn't matter. But I just need to know what happened to Angus. Where did Kyrus go? Like, what happened to him? He just vanished from the middle of the barn with no explanation. And then, like, did we just forget about Bristol's mom? Where is she? Where did Bristol's mom go throughout all of this situation? Is she dead? From what he said, it seems like she's not. The tick. Bristol still has a baseball-sized tick on her back, and nobody's talking about this. Let me just end this video by saying, I feel like screaming and throwing the book across the room all over again. It has been like a month since I finished this book, and I'm still angry about it. So, yeah. On that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. Yeah, I don't know if I recommend this book or not, but I hope all of you were entertained by my antics and by my anger. I hope you have an amazing rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever other time of day it is for you. I'm gonna go have an iced soda or something because I need to calm down. I'm fired up all over again. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.